You ever get this feeling like what's considered like bad art in one time period could be like totally genius in another?
Hmm.
And it makes you wonder like what even makes good music good?
Right.
Well, get ready to unpack a debate from the early 1600s, the Artusi Monteverdi controversy.
Oh, yeah.
You've sent over these excerpts from music scholar Ilias Chrysokoidis' article,
Okay.
and it gets right to the heart of that question. How do we even decide what good music is?
Well, what's so interesting about the debate, right, is it wasn't just two guys duking it out.
Right.
This was a symptom of a huge shift that was happening in music. We're talking Renaissance to Baroque. Like,
Mhm.
imagine a whole era's rules of art are being challenged. It's big.
Right, like a whole musical earthquake. Okay, so let's introduce these guys.
Yeah.
On one side, we've got Claudio Monteverdi, composer extraordinaire, pushing boundaries left and right.
Pushing every button.
And on the other side.
We've got Giovanni Maria Artusi. He's a music theorist.
Okay.
Very much about tradition, believed in the established rules of music, not just as like guidelines, but as the foundation, like the core of beauty in music.
Got it.
And he did not like it when he felt those rules were being broken. Not one bit.
And break them, Monteverdi did. But before we get to the rule breaking, where's Artusi coming from?
Yeah.
Because Chrysokoidis makes a point of saying he wasn't just some, grumpy old guy stuck in his ways.
Right. He was not just against anything new. No, Artusi, he was the real deal. Serious scholar, came up through rigorous musical training. Like he was a devoted student of Giuseppe Zarlino, major name in Renaissance music theory,
Oh, yeah.
So when Artusi's coming after Monteverdi, it's not just him, it's a whole line of musical thought he's representing.
Right, so he's like defending a whole lineage.
Exactly, a whole family tree of ideas. And it's more than just theory to him, right? This was how people understood the universe at the time.
Oh, wow.
Music was a science back then. We're talking like tied in with mathematics and cosmology.
So, like, to challenge music is to challenge the universe.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And get this, Chrysokoidis mentions that Artusi even argued with Galileo about music.
Whoa. Galileo, like the telescope guy.
Yeah, the one and only.
I don't usually think of Galileo as a music critic.
Right. But it shows you how deep this ran for Artusi. Like they're debating the essence of sound itself, how we hear it, how it connects to math, like big picture stuff.
So not just does this sound good, but like universal truths are at stake.
Exactly. It wasn't just about nice tune. It was about the very nature of music and its place in the order of things.
That is wild.
Mm.
It makes Artusi's point of view, even if we end up kind of vibing with Monteverdi more, like,
Yeah.
you kind of got to respect
Yeah,
him.
absolutely.
Okay, so we've got Artusi, defender of tradition, musical universe in order, all that.
Right.
But Monteverdi comes along and says, hold my harpsichord.
Pretty much.
So how's he actually ruffling Artusi's feathers? What's in these compositions?
The big thing, the core of it, is Monteverdi's use of dissonance.
Dissonance, okay.
He was not shy about using notes that clash, that create this like tension, especially for ears that were used to Renaissance music. Very smooth, very consonant polyphony, everything blending nicely.
Right.
This would have been like, whoa, what is happening?
Paint a picture for our ears. What would this sound like? Give me an example.
Okay, imagine you're listening to a beautiful chord progression, everything resolving in a way that's, pleasing, expected.
Yeah.
And then, bam, Monteverdi hits you with this note that just hangs there, unresolved. It creates this unease, this longing,
Oh, I see. So he's messing with us, like a musical plot twist.
Exactly. He's playing with your expectations, creating drama through the music itself.
Gotcha.
And of course, Artusi, Mr. Rules, he hears this and is like, this is chaos, this is wrong. Basically, he saw these dissonances as like violations of natural law. These weren't just wrong notes. They were blemishes on the beauty, the purity of music,
Right.
But Monteverdi, he's got to come back right. He's like, hold on. These dissonances, they're not accidents. I'm doing this on purpose.
Ooh, spicy.
Oh, yeah. He says, these dissonances, they're there to make you feel something, to heighten the emotional impact.
Okay, so it's not just about what sounds pretty on the surface. There's a deeper layer of emotion he's going for.
Exactly. And this is where his big idea comes in. Seconda pratica.
Seconda pratica. I'm going to butcher this, but it means like second practice.
Yeah, you got it. And basically, it's Monteverdi's way of saying, look, the old rules, they're cool, they still work, but there's another way to do this. Another correct way, where it's not just about following the rules, but about making the music as expressive as possible. Make it move people, tell a story, create drama, all that.
So it's less about is this note allowed? And more about what feeling am I trying to get across?
Exactly. He wanted to use these dissonances strategically to evoke a wider range of emotions, grief, joy, longing, even anger.
I feel like that's a pretty modern way of looking at art, even today. Like sometimes you got to break the rules to make a point.
Totally. And it's like, what's more important, a perfectly grammatical sentence or a line of poetry that breaks the rules to hit you in the feels?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I'd take a gut punch poem over a grammar textbook any day.
Right. And that's kind of what Monteverdi is going for, but it's important to say he's not saying burn the rule book,
Yeah,
everything goes.
right.
He still believes in structure, in form, all that, but those are tools. They serve the bigger purpose of expression.
Okay, so it's like rules with a reason, but don't be afraid to bend them if the emotion's there.
Exactly.
So we've got these two guys with very different ideas about what music should be. How do they actually hash it out? Like, do they just have a polite disagreement over tea and call it a day?
Oh, if only. No, this is where it gets juicy. We're talking a full-on war of words, public, very public, letters, treatises are going back and forth. The whole Renaissance music world's watching.
Wait, really? Publicly? Like, they put it all out there in writing?
They did, which, by the way, Chris Akoitis points out, this was not the norm for these music theory debates back then.
So they were really going at it. What's the deal with that? Why so public?
Right, and there are theories, of course. Chris Akoitis, he wonders if maybe the printers themselves got in on the action.
Printers. Like the guys with the printing presses.
Yeah, Amadino, he's Monteverdi's guy, and Vincenti, he printed Artusi. Maybe they saw this debate as a way to sell more sheet music. Drum up some controversy, get people talking.
Ooh, a little 17th century music biz drama.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. So it's like, even back then, it wasn't just about the art. There was this whole publicity game going on.
It makes you think, right? Even with something as, high-minded as music theory, there's ego, ambition, that desire to be seen. Makes you wonder how much of any historical feud is just playing to an audience.
It's the oldest story in the book, isn't it? Everyone loves a good feud.
Right. But even taking out the drama, even if they weren't trying to one-up each other, the core question is still fascinating.
Yeah.
What matters more? Sticking to tradition or having the freedom to experiment, to express something new, even if it makes some people uncomfortable.
It's a question that never really gets old, does it? Especially in art.
Yeah.
But okay, so centuries later, looking back on this whole showdown, who do we say won this duel? So centuries later, who gets bragging rights in this musical showdown?
Yeah.
On the surface, it seems like Monteverdi is the clear winner. I mean, we're still talking about his music. His operas are performed worldwide.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if we're talking about who's got more operas being staged these days, Monteverdi for sure.
Right.
But Chris Akoitis, he reminds us not to jump to conclusions. Like, Monteverdi's music is still around, that's true. And those ideas about dissonance, emotional expression, they basically became like Music 101.
Right.
But in Artusi's time, those weren't just like random things he made up.
Yeah.
We're talking centuries of tradition, of musical thought behind those rules.
So even if we, listening now, are drawn to Monteverdi's innovations, you're saying, pause a second. Think about what came before.
Yeah.
Because even rules, they come from somewhere.
Yeah.
They reflect something people really cared about.
Exactly. It's like, imagine, say you walk into the Louvre, right?
Okay.
And you're like, you know what this Mona Lisa needs? A little splash of neon pink right here.
Right.
Some people, they might be like, whoa, avant-garde, I love it. But others, they'd be calling for security, vandalism.
Yeah.
It all comes down to, perspective.
Right.
Understanding the setting where the art was made, why people loved it or hated it,
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. It reminds me that what we call progress in anything, not just music, it's not always a straight line.
Right.
What's groundbreaking in one generation might be the starting point for something totally different later on, and that's cool.
Absolutely. And every generation, they have their Monteverdis, right? The artists who poke and prod, shake things up.
Oh, yeah.
Think about jazz when it first came out, or rock and roll, right? All that energy.
Right.
People freaked out. Too loud, chaos, this is going to ruin the youth. The whole deal.
It's just noise.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. But eventually, these rule breakers, they change the whole game. What was radical becomes the new normal.
So how are we supposed to know, right? When we're listening to something new, something different, how do we tell if it's just noise or if it's actually the future of music?
$1 million question, right? And I don't know if there's one right answer.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not about choosing sides. This is good, that's bad, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe it's more like getting curious about the why.
Okay.
Why did the artist do it this way? What were they trying to make us feel? I think if we listen to new music, whatever it is, with that kind of open mind, we might surprise ourselves with what we find.
I like that. It's like instead of judging it right away, just listen. Let the music tell its story.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, before we wrap up this musical deep dive, I got to ask about these other takes on the whole controversy. Because Chris mentions there's some other ways of looking at this whole thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What are some of those?
Right. So, like, there are some scholars who've looked at this whole Artusi Monteverdi thing through a feminist lens, you know,
Okay.
analyzing the language, how they talked about music, and you can see these assumptions about, like, what's masculine, what's feminine, all tied up in how they judge the music itself.
Wow. So it's not even just about music anymore. It's about gender roles, power dynamics, all that.
Right. It shows you how these big social forces, they shape how we make art, how we hear it, how we argue about it, even back then.
It's a good reminder that, like, no historical event, it's ever just one thing, you know?
Never. There's always more going on, more layers.
So much context.
Always. And that's why studying history is so cool. It's not about memorizing dates or whatever.
Right.
It's like you're having a conversation with the past, trying to figure out why things are the way they are now.
I'm all about it. Okay, but we've got to wrap up this deep dive soon. And there's one last little nugget that Chris drops that I got to ask about. He suggests that maybe Artusi didn't just pick a fight with Monteverdi randomly.
Oh, this is interesting.
What if he had an ulterior motive for going after him specifically?
I'm listening.
Okay, so Monteverdi, yeah, he was a rule breaker, but Chris says he wasn't even the most radical composer out there.
Oh, okay.
But he was young, he was becoming the new hotshot.
Ah, I see.
So maybe Artusi saw a chance to make a statement, like if you're going to fix music, who better to target than the rising star?
So it's less about Monteverdi himself and more about who he represented.
All right, like, hey, young guys, you think you could just waltz in here and change everything?
A power move.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how often that happens, even today. Not just in art, but anywhere, really. People in charge, they pick their battles, not just for the principle of it, but to flex a little, you know, to stay on top.
Makes you think twice about whose rules we're following and why, doesn't it?
For sure. Always question the rules.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you've enjoyed exploring the fascinating world of 17th century musical debates, and that this deep dive has left you with more questions than answers. Keep those ears open, those minds curious, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive into a topic you'll never forget.